Okay. Looks like we're live. Checking 1, 2, 3. Sound. Yeah, looks good. Okay, so hi everyone. This is Vlada and I'm Brana. We're part of the tech team here at OriginTrail, and today we're going to answer the questions that you've eagerly sent to us over the last couple of days. Well, as much as we can of them. There's actually quite a lot. So I suggest we jump right into them immediately. So basically, the first question is, what is OriginTrail up to these days? Okay, so well, we're up to a lot of things, especially here in the tech team. There's a lot of developments around doing the new bidding mechanism and actually optimizing the node for resilience. So some of that you can actually read in the blog post that we published 2 days ago, I think. So basically, there's a lot of things, a lot of research going on. We're looking into new things happening at the community level. So, but generally, very, very interesting things, and you will be able to see them quite soon, actually. Want to add something, maybe?
Well, generally, it's a kind of always dynamic here, and recently we are on so many things. We are trying to cover everything, and basically, I think we are quite busy, but also very, very happy about things which we are doing at this moment.
Okay,
I didn't say anything. I said a lot.
Yeah, let's go to the concrete questions, actually.
Yeah.
So, okay. What are the advantages of choosing OriginTrail instead of building own solutions by big companies? How can they benefit? Okay, so basically what OriginTrail has set itself to be as tech from the beginning is to actually bring the neutrality needed for this industry. Because so far, one of the reasons why we haven't seen major solutions take a lot of adoption is exactly this reason, that it hasn't been neutral and it hasn't been interoperable. This comes from both vendor lock-in as well as companies trying to push on their own solution to others, and obviously when this starts getting into kind of touchy things like if this technology is compatible with technology of someone else, or if this is actually stuff that involves competition in the tech world, then this is kind of this is something that hasn't been put out so well. Think of, for example, DVD standards and similar ones. And in that sense, that's why OriginTrail is focusing on neutrality and interoperability of data. We have taken this as the basic layer of our system. So we support as a protocol a wide range of use cases. Just because we actually have a proper data structure that is tailored for a wide range of different problems in supply chains, and that's why we can map a lot of different data standards on it. On the other hand, we also support connections to a lot of different blockchains. So in that sense, the protocol as well can be seen as neutral. Finally, as industry-wide, it also doesn't focus focus on one segment of the industry, or puts like more emphasis on any of it. Actually, it's very, very wide in that terms. And we have a bunch of very innovative features. So one of them being the zero knowledge layer, which actually for the first time allows someone to take a certain private set of data and actually validate that because of the data that has been shared, a certain supply chain is valid. And this is something that we're very proud of, actually. So there's quite a few innovative things, and just generally the technology we're in is so cutting edge that there's going to be certain things like these that are going to differentiate products and protocols like ours. Okay, so next one is, how will the trace token be used as an actual use case for the supply chain? And why does OriginTrail need its own token? So basically, yes, in terms of the token is actually something that keeps the ecosystem together. It's kind of a glue in a way. Basically, it is there to manage the relations within the system meaning the relations between the nodes. So if you're familiar with the architecture, there's essentially a couple of types of nodes. It's DC and DH nodes that are communicating together, but in a way they can be interchangeable. So that one DC node at some point is a DC node, or the other point is a DH node. And all these relations involve exchanging data, communicating in a constant manner, and actually creating offers and bids to each other. So all these things, in the end, happen to provide services to each other. And for these services, the nodes obviously need some sort of compensation. So in order to have a trustless way to actually handle this whole process, this is where the TRAC token is intended for use. So in that sense, that is the utility of the token itself. Okay, more questions. What are some of the challenges facing OriginTrail before the release of mainnet, and how does OriginTrail address these challenges? You want to maybe take that one?
Yes. Well, the most of the challenges that we currently can talk about are the ones that we already talked about in this blog post that we had recently. Generally, these challenges are on one side of I mean, one of the things that we noticed really soon after the testnet launch is that the amount of spendage of Ether was a little bit too high for what we were hoping for. And we were trying to explore all the possible different mechanisms, how to basically reduce the costs and how to make it as low as possible. And I think that we basically have a great progress there, because what we managed to do is basically to bring it up just to one transaction basically, and also to be charged only in cases when you're actually bidding. For those ones who are using the system already, you know what I'm talking about. So basically, what we did is ensure that you're not really spending Ether in case you're not bidding. In case you're not going to win the offer, actually, this is even more important. And another challenge that is also very important that we were actually published a video demonstrating this is the node resilience. What we wanted to do, because a lot of the community members, especially people from Telegram, I remember, were asking what will happen if my node goes down, if I don't know, electricity goes down and stuff like that. And what we were trying to make is that we make sure that node is up, and even if it goes down, that it can recover. And if you take a look at our latest blog post, you can actually see the demonstration. Janko, our colleague, our developer from the company, was demonstrating how you can basically randomly kill or actually stop two of the nodes and see what will happen. That they will basically recover every time and finish the process. So this is the idea. This is a process, ongoing process. We are working on it. We are very far in the sense that we developed this command source. Actually, we employ this command sourcing partner, kind of. And what is going on is that basically all the commands, all the operations that node performs are kind of commands that can be repeated in case of any problems. And this is very good, but I'm just saying that this is a part of the process until the launch. I think we'll have a really resilient node in any possible way, meaning that you can do with it whatever you want. You can kill it, or you can stop it at any point, and it will always be able to recover without losing any of your data or corrupting data or things like that. So this is it, I think.
Yeah, I would just like to add that basically there's several things down the way that we're going to work on, and one of them is actually to be able to provide a high availability node as well. Yeah. So the idea is that you don't have one computer potentially being your own node, so maybe you have several of them that actually take care of surviving in case one goes down. So in that sense, we're taking quite a lot of thought and planning into this process, so that actually the network itself is really resilient, not only the node. So that is the two main things we're actually focusing on in the next period.
This is also why currently on the testnet we are kind of like stopping and restarting a lot of the nodes. So if you are if you are participating in this testnet, and if you notice that maybe sometimes like you receive offers for a long time and then you stop receiving them, actually we are playing with it. We are trying all possible options, putting us a little bit of stress on the network and see what's going on.
Okay. Lot of questions. Let's keep on going.
Yeah.
Okay. Will there be companies already using the OriginTrail protocol when the mainnet goes live?
Yeah. This is a good question. I mean, companies are already using the testnet, and they are really eager to transition to the mainnet. Some of it is a process, and they have a different pace. Like different companies will have definitely different pace. We are already doing a lot to implement as much as possible, and generally this is it. I mean, companies are using it and will be using it more and more. We are collaborating to I mean, you just have to be aware that this is a process and it takes some time, but basically we are doing it on a daily basis.
Yeah, one of the best things about this process is actually you get really, really valuable feedback, not only from like someone running a node, but someone actually attempting to do a use case. So you get exactly the proper fit on from what someone's need is to what the technology needs to do, and this has helped us a lot to actually validate a lot of things in the tech. Okay, so let's go. What will keep OriginTrail relevant as new blockchain technology continues to emerge? Yeah, that's actually a very good question. So we see, first of all, just to kind of clarify for maybe someone who's not so informed, OriginTrail is not building its own blockchain. So we are building a network that is actually off-chain. So it's a decentralized network for supply chains that works together with blockchains. And in that sense, we're designing it from the start to be able to utilize many different blockchains that support the actual features that our network needs. And in that sense, whatever developments in the technology in terms of blockchain in general, decentralization, happens is valuable to us because we're building a system in such a way that we leverage these great developments. It's not that we're competing with other blockchain solutions; it's actually that we're rooting for other blockchain solutions so they can provide more features, make things cheaper and more scalable, obviously. And we're actually looking quite a lot into what's going on in the industry, not only by reading a lot. There's a lot of papers around that are very, very high quality, both and following cool projects, but also going into events as well and meeting relevant people. So there's quite a lot of great and exciting things coming up. But I think we should talk about these when we get to the more precise sort of talk about specifically scale and cost. But yes, in the end, it comes down to the neutrality that I've already mentioned. So in that way, we can see OriginTrail and much more as a complementary technology rather than competitive to other blockchains and general decentralized solutions, because we're not solving the same problem in the same way. So it's because we're middleware and because we use the graph data structures as our in our data layer and focus on the interconnectivity of data. This is as the underlying problems. This is something that actually quite a lot differentiates our technology. So it's not a blockchain, not a decentralized storage solution. It's something very tailored to supply chains and their own needs and their data needs.
Yeah. I like to say that we are kind of like a supply chain company based on blockchain technology, but generally supply chain company. So.
Yep. Okay, next one. Will OriginTrail use NFC RFID tracking products in any way? If so, how will you prevent tampering? Do you want to do this one?
Yeah, I will try. I mean, well, this is definitely not the focus of what we are doing, not the focus of what we are developing. Basically, we support all kind of data inputs and all kind of identifiers that can come into our system. We can support them, whether this or something else, it will work on our protocol. But you must understand that data is, I mean, as data carriers are good as the data that comes into the protocol. So basically, what we are trying to solve on the other way is like trying to ensure some of the mechanisms that will help the data help to mark data as correct. And one of these mechanisms is, for example, consensus check and things like that. So if you have a lot of different inputs into the system, and if they have consensus that this data is good, basically you can have a more level or higher level of trust that this data is good. But dealing with a particular inputs, is it okay or not, this is not really a scope of what we are doing. But as I already said, we will definitely support any kind of input into the protocol, into that.
Yeah, I would just like to add that we're actually working on cases that are very oriented towards IoT and smart tags already. We've done the case with Wine, so I encourage anyone who's interested to look it up. And we're actually, this is an emerging market, and there's quite a lot of new cool tech showing up. But like Vlada said, this is a data carrier, and it carries basically an identifier towards some sort of data, and this is where the actual trust is needed, is in the data. So when you have the data on the network that is trusted and that is decentralized, that actually gives value to the data carrier itself. Can data carriers be tampered with? Yeah, there's a possibility towards that, but there's also quite a lot of solutions, and it's kind of improving. It's a standard security paradigm, So in terms of security, you can look at any sort of system where if you put a very expensive data carrier on a bottle of milk, so maybe $5, $20, whatever expensive carrier on a bottle of milk, which is $1, it's not going to be feasible. So you can secure it. So someone's probably going to use a cheaper alternative for that. But in that sense, if you have a very high, expensive product, then it might make sense, and then you could utilize ways to make it almost completely tamper-proof. And it really depends on the use case. But finally, when it comes down to OriginTrail, it is important that the protocol supports many different data standards, and that is why we actually have implemented already, even though it was planned down the line, we implemented the Web of Things data standard, which is actually focused on encompassing different IoT data standards. Yeah. And having this implemented under the actual moniker of GS1 standards, this has helped us, tremendously, because now we're in the development already utilizing and testing these cases within the standard that already exists. And so in that sense, we cover quite a wide range of data carriers, including NFC, RFID, and similar ones. But I think we're getting carried away in one question. It's a cool one. Someone mentions IoT, tech guys like to talk about IoT. Okay, standardization is a major step towards business adoption. Will the OriginTrail, as part of the Trace Alliance, get in touch with the International Organization for Standardization to propose the OriginTrail protocol as a standard for supply chain industry? Yeah, well, I already mentioned this in a way. So the aim of the protocol is actually to support many different standards. So, and in that sense, so far, we have been focused on GS1, but that is not where the story ends. And I would just kind of go it because I have a need to explain why and how we actually did it. Is we have a certain sort of ontology and logic that we have applied to actual graph theory, being able to literally represent any sort of event and entities that are involved in events regarding whatever type of supply chain that might be, or actually not even only supporting supply chain. It's very, very wide. So in that case, OriginTrail is aiming to be able to support, the ability to describe what is going on within either a certain supply chain or maybe flow of information. And in that sense, it really boils down to actually doing a very proper base layer of that can support many different standards. It's very generic. That's why it needs to be. And I actually encourage anyone interested to go check the paper on it we published. But basically, the whole essential idea back there is to be able to be very standard neutral and be very wide in that sense that that anyone can just sort of even build their own additional standards in. So this can actually be done today. So far we built a few standards, but anyone else can go and take our importers and our graph logic ontology from the documentation, actually build their own importers for the standard. So this is something that in a way we already support. Okay, what is the point in using a graph database which is not immutable and decentralized on a blockchain project? Who should be wholly decentralized and this carry all the properties and advantages of blockchain? Why not consider decentralized cloud storage like Filecoin storage? What is preventing you to go into that direction? Okay, let's do some mid-busting.
This is my favorite one. Okay, so the nature of the data that we are dealing with is kind of specific in a sense that we have highly interconnected data, and the graph structure. Actually, that was my question that I was drawing in the company. And I was discussing this with you, Branimir, and what is the reason to use graph database? Basically, the data, the nature of the data that we are using is much better described with the graph than with the standard like query database. And what we can basically, I mean, in this question there is a sentence. It's not immutable and decentralized. Actually, this is not the case. In our protocol, the data is decentralized because we are, sharing the data between the nodes, and there is no central place where the data is stored. This is one thing, and also it is immutable in a way because this data, actually, the hashes of this data is stored on the blockchain, meaning that basically if you change the data, it will be immediately visible, meaning that the data is immutable. So the whole point is that actually this kind of structure is better, suits are much better, and the services that we are talking about here, like I don't know, Storj or Filecoin and so on, they are basically doing something like opposite of what we are trying to achieve. I mean, in this system, and they are perfectly suitable for some other use cases, I suppose, but maybe not for this one that we are doing. But in these cases, the data is basically split into very small chunks and distributed over lots of nodes. And we are actually doing something completely different. We want our data to be connected. So if we have several players in some supply chain and they're all pouring in the data for their parts of business, we want this data to be connected. So, but it doesn't mean that it will be only on one place. It will actually be decentralized in a way that it will be on a lot of nodes. So this is the whole idea behind it.
I would just maybe add that we started from this idea of utilizing some sort of other network and realized that it's not going to cut it.
Yeah.
And that is if you start actually some of the things are very similar. So if you look at the mechanism, for example, the way Swarm distributes chunks within the network, or if you look at Filecoin's documentation and what they've actually been putting out, it's actually quite similar. So we all replicate information to a certain amount of nodes, and the resilience of data is basically up to the amount of nodes -1. So you have enough replication to get decentralized data, and then again also save on cost from blockchain, because in blockchain you replicate to all of the nodes in the network, and that is why it has to be expensive. So in that sense, there are similarities to the system, but deep down there's actually quite a few differences that make it because of the use case that doesn't fit the different case. So for example, if you're using Filecoin, when you will be using Filecoin when it goes live, or Swarm, it's actually more intended for personal use. So if you publish your data, you're the one who's encrypting it, signing it, and then it gets chopped up and thrown all around the network. So you're the one who has the keys for everything, and you can share a key with someone and so on. Obviously, this is a simplification, but on the other hand, so it's not immediately intended to become transparent. On the other hand, when companies share data towards customers, for example, and they want to have data from all over the supply chain, it has to be multiple companies getting data on the same thing that needs to be connected in a way. So it is a different sort of set of problems, and we really learned that the graph structure is something that's the best suitable for this, because we actually started with the wrong structure a while ago. A couple of years back, we used relational databases, ending up emulating graphs in relational databases. So that's a good learning, at least. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Could you specify how you're dealing with the issues presented within the Ethereum network, and also how will the gas fees be attacked? And what, if any, scaling solutions are you considering for the time being? Given the current sharding issues with Ethereum and every major blockchain or protocol, how does OriginTrail plan to address scalability issues? Yeah, so basically, I already mentioned a little bit of that, but we are obviously looking into what the community is doing, and very closely, actually, Plasma. Plasma is a very interesting concept, and as well as state channels. So, in a way, all of us in the Ethereum community are hit by the same problems. We're all aware of them, and we've started from the beginning, actually building out the protocol that these problems are less important. And when you look at OriginTrail, we're not talking about the same set of problems. So we're not, the basic unit of what the protocol does is a data exchange rather than a transaction which represents sort of a value exchange. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the same set of problems there, and meaning that, for example, the cases we have observed so far can actually scale much better when you take data off-chain and you put it on a decentralized network like OriginTrail, and then you fingerprint this data in a certain clever way, let's say. So clever way being in a certain batch way of data, and then again in a certain time. So for example, so far we've been using cases where the data would be uploaded on a daily basis, so once a day. So basically one transaction a day on Ethereum, which is much less load than what actually one will think of. So in that sense, not that it doesn't support more transactions. It's the thing is that we're engineering it that it can work with a very low amount of transactions. And in that sense, if you look at other solutions like sidechains, Plasma coming up, that's only going to soften this issue. So we're really looking hard at it, and state channels as well. If we can obviously manage relations between nodes in such a way that they don't require to utilize the main chain of Ethereum, that they can actually use state channels, that is obviously a plus for the protocol. So we are definitely looking into supporting these solutions. Finally, obviously, written and similar upcoming networks are very interesting to us. So it's going to help us make the protocol more efficient and in a way cheaper. But we're still designing the whole solution in mind, even if these things don't come in the nearest possible future. So in that sense, we are building a system that's scalable from the beginning, especially with the ability to actually utilize multiple chains. Okay, so how does Trace plan to distinguish itself from other supply chain blockchain solutions, being an ERC20 token alone? You want to do this one?
Yes, I'll try. I mean, well, the point is that this is not something that will actually distinguish us at all from the other supply chain solutions, or blockchain solutions. I mean, what we are trying to achieve here is like we have a certain value, and this is the value that I honestly don't see that there is another company that is doing. I mean, there are some companies that are doing supply chain solutions on blockchain in general, but the set of features and values that we provide to our clients is something that I don't see that there is similar solutions on the market. And this is the value that will basically distinguish us. And the token is only the utility, I mean, the way to move the value between the participants in the system. But generally, it's not something that is important in this way to distinguish us from other players on the market. So I would say something like that. I don't know if
I agree. I mean, yes, there are benefits to having a native token and an ERC20 token, especially when the base of your system is a blockchain, meaning that you're building a chain and you're taking everything that comes with that. And in that sense, we have a very different approach. So for us, it's not that the token is going to bring the value; it's actually the utility of the system. How good the service is, how better it can scale, and how easy it is to use, and the actual, from the ground up qualities that we're building into this method. So it's going to, in the long run, that's going to prevail, and not the actual difference between having a native or ERC20 token. So I think that's kind of like wraps it up.
Yeah, especially if this question was actually into ERC versus native.
Okay. How will the people that have low amounts of trades compete in the staking process against big holders? What guarantees that the big players won't leave out others without the ability to stake as they take all the jobs? And the next one is actually quite a lot like that one. So as far as nodes, masternodes are concerned, has your team structured how that will work? What are the minimum number of trace tokens we will need to run the node masternode? How many coins are required for masternode? When trace masternode will take place? Okay.
Yeah, this is like a common question. I've seen it a lot, especially on Telegram. People are asking these kind of questions, and I understand the concerns here. Generally, let me start from the end and say we don't have masternodes. I mean, there is no such thing in OriginTrail. There is something that's, I mean, you can stake less or more, and depending on how much you stake, you increase your chances to win the offers and have a better income. And the important word in what I just said is you increase your chances, meaning that the higher stake will not guarantee you that you will win the offer. So there is no chance that some huge player will just have an insanely large stake and then just grab all the offers from everybody else. No, it doesn't work like that, because there are other parameters that are playing the game. Some of these parameters are like your price that you are asking for. Some of them are like availability of your node, and some of them are maybe some past jobs that you have with a certain node. But some of them are pure chance. So basically, even if you have the perfect possible mix of these parameters, there are also a little bit of chance in the game. So it doesn't guarantee you that you will get any offer. This is one side of the story. Another side of the story is also that basically it's okay even if some node holders would probably want or be aware that they are maybe providing less availability, or maybe a smaller stake or something like that. But on the other side, they don't have this kind of pressure that they have always needs to be online. That so it's just a market, and on every market you have the two sides with different needs, and there is basically a match for all of these offers and demands. So this is why I think this will not be the problem. But in my personal opinion, in the first place, you shouldn't see it as the stake as something that is like a golden or silver bullet that will, if you have a large stake, it solves everything. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I mean, this comes from the world of obviously mostly blockchain solutions. People are looking at delegate proof of stake, and it makes sense this question pops up most of the time.
Yeah.
I would just like to add something you mentioned. You mentioned randomization, in a way, chance. And this is actually very important for any sort of decentralized system, because if you look at, for example, proof of work is a system that is actually intended to distribute in a sort of a random way or semi-random way chances throughout the planet that someone actually gets to mine block. So the bigger hash power you have, obviously, the more you get to, the more chance you have to mine something, but that doesn't once 100% guarantee you will do it. You know, without going any deeper into this, obviously, the topic is very wide, and especially if you start comparing to proof of stake, what we're looking here at is not such a system. This is a different way of looking at staking. And staking is just putting up collateral that you will do that your node will do a job that it actually agreed upon in this certain agreement terms in the network. So there's a per agreement amount of stake that is actually put up sort of as collateral that your node will do this. And in that sense, it influences the system. But just as Vlada said, there's both chance involved, which needs to be there if you want to have a decentralized system. And then again, there's also price that your node requires for the service. Several other things, reputation, previous relations, and then finally stake. So it's just one of the parameters in the system. It's not going to make a situation where someone with a huge bag of coins is going to control the whole system. That's if we did it this way, we would actually make a mistake. This would fail.
I would just add before we continue, although we have lots of questions and we should speed up. But I just wanted to say that this is one of the things that we are actually testing on the testnet, and the point of the testnet is to make sure that things like that don't happen. Because if that happens, the whole system has no meaning. I mean, it's pointless. So we are completely aware of. And basically very resolved not to allow something like that to happen.
Okay, if your node is not selected, is the team working to find a way to reverse refund the ETH gas costs needed to submit to be used? Okay, so let me just kind of rephrase that for everyone to understand. So this question probably comes from someone who's already tried to use the node. And essentially, the current mechanism that's going on in the testnet is that your node, in order to apply to actually be in the process of selection in this randomization process, needs to send a transaction to the smart contract, which costs some ether, some gas, obviously. And because of the way that the node is trying to guess what are its chances, it obviously makes a mistake from time to time. It guesses, it doesn't get in, and then in that sense, it doesn't. It ends up spending ETH without any sort of refund. That's where the question is coming from, and basically that is why we're doing the new bidding upgrade for the mechanism, which Vlada mentioned. So basically means that if you need to make a transaction as a node that wants to store data, you will 100% be sure that you're going to get the job in that sense. So because this presents sort of a kickstart for actually the service to run, and at the end of the service, the node would have been compensated as much tokens as needed for both covering this cost as well as for covering the cost of the service itself. So that's why we're actually upgrading the system so that we don't have any more of these problems. And essentially, there's no need for a refund once you actually know that when you apply and when you get it, you're already kind of being compensated for it. So it's not really a refund. How do you plan to get around the relatively high transaction fees on Ethereum? Do you expect gas fees to be an issue, or will the value of the average transaction make the gas fee relatively tiny? Yes, so we already touched upon this. Just briefly remind everyone that the new mechanism is both, first of all, not going to let a node spend ether or gas if they don't actually have a compensation in turn, so they don't get chosen by the bidding mechanism. That's number one. The other elements to how we're actually tackling it is that we're obviously optimizing the smart contracts, so it's going to require less gas. And in the end, we've done some estimations where actually this transaction cost, which, like I said, can be arbitrarily low depending on how many times you actually want to push data on the network, because you can bundle the data to send them once to the network and fingerprint the data all at once, not having to do it several times during the day. In this way, scaling down the number of transactions. So when you have a low number of transactions and you can choose at what point during the day you can shoot this transaction, you can actually choose the time when the network is not under its load. And that, having that said, if the gas goes high, it might just be the chance that your node needs to wait for a few minutes or hours to actually submit the data. If it's not time critical, this could actually help quite a lot. So we're working on this part as well. But finally, in the end, long term, we're also looking at scaling solutions, like I said. So it will be ideal to see how scale is going to bring a different situation towards cost as well as plasma and similar solutions. So in kind of a final thought on that is that the whole idea and what we're building is that the actual gas cost is only a tiny part of the whole service. And we're trying to minimize that as well. Okay. In my opinion, a key step to adoption is user experience. How are you tackling this problem? You want to do it?
Yeah, well, the user experience, I would completely agree with this one. I mean, it is very important, and it is something that we are definitely working on. It's something that you must understand that it's not really trivial, in the sense that some of the things that, to set up a node is not really like to run any kind of user-friendly software. But we also try to make it almost that way. And we did a lot already, I think, in that direction, meaning that we managed to make the node installation being like 2-3 commands that you type in your console, which is really the minimum for something like this, because this is the kind of software that is complex and needs a lot of configuration. Also, we developed the Houston, our control panel for node holders, which is something that is only in the beginning of its development, meaning that usability of this software really improved over time. This was something that was not even in our roadmap during the alpha stage. We just realized the need at a certain point and decided to do it. And this is something that we are going to develop much further in the future. And but still, I completely agree that we have to do everything that is in our power to make it even more user-friendly, even more usable and easy to use. And this is the direction that I'm really looking forward and trying to do everything that is possible. But with this limitation that some of the things must be done like they are done. So generally, people would like maybe sometimes to run a node on Windows 7 from some of the software like we are using Docker for this images, and some of the software is simply not working. It was not existing at the time, and it doesn't work on this operating system. So it cannot be really as if you're running, like WhatsApp application or something like that. That is kind of simple to install, but we are doing our best to make it as easy as possible and available on any operating system.
Yeah, it comes down to the difference in it's good comparison to WhatsApp, because it's a much different thing. Actually, when you download the node and you install it, you have literally the unit of the system, where WhatsApp is just like an interface to the actual centralized system. And here you have the whole system. So it actually has to have a certain degree of complexity. On the other hand, in time it actually becomes easier and easier. And when you look at how we started and how easy it is to install today, it's gonna be even easier in the future. That's a very different story. But in a way, when you look at it, even the operating systems you mentioned, the constraint is Docker. It's not
Yeah,
our
it's
node.
not our
So
node,
you know, if someone there is a way to do it on Windows 7. The thing is just there's not you cannot do the two 3 click install that we have.
Exactly.
Right? So that is the thing, and so there are some prerequisites that need to be fulfilled in order to have a very, very, very easy user experience, which we're trying to do our best with, really. And I believe like the team has done great things so far, and it's going to be even better because it just involves a lot of time and a lot of feedback. So in order to have a great user experience, you need feedback from the users, obviously. So in that sense, it's not we've been getting some, but the more we get, and the more you guys send us. If you're part of the beta program and on our Discord, please, give us your opinions, tell us what works, what doesn't, what confuses you. This is very valuable to us. So in that sense, it takes time to gather all this feedback.
Yeah, and I must say also that sometimes, maybe you're not aware of it if you're participating in this program, but your input that you sent is really meaning a lot to us. And generally, sometimes I realize that we are not always able to answer on every comment that people leave on Discord, for example, or something, although we are trying recently to make it, as efficient as possible. But don't think that even if you don't get like some return or feedback from us, don't think that this comment doesn't mean anything for us, because we are aggregating all this and really using it to make as good user experience as possible. We are kind of like more focused on core features at the moment. I mean, especially in the past. Right now we are doing some of these additional features that we were talking about, but we are also trying to improve this. And as the time goes and as we approach to the mainnet, we will put more and more attention to these things. I mean, like usability and user experience.
Okay, next one. Will the average Joe be able to set up a node easily? This is very similar one. Okay, let's read it. Does he need to rent out the server, or is it possible by running something on Windows? How will the node setup process be like compared to the testnet? Will it be simpler? I think we basically.
I think we already covered that. I will just say two sentences more. Yes, I mean they already can run it on the Windows, and we are going to improve it as well. And generally, there are some limitations, as we said, but we are doing our best.
Okay, so next one we haven't covered. How will you be dealing with notifying node holders if their node goes down? Yeah, so this is a really good idea, actually. We've been looking into this, and the thing is that it has to be also looked from a decentralization point of view a little bit. So if there is a certain mechanism that is used from the node itself to communicate to its owner, that's ideal. But we're also looking into ways of how we can kind of facilitate that, because that also involves some sort of setup. For example, setting up an email server to handle the node sending an email is not so trivial, and that would obviously we would not be able to have that come as part of the node. But there are other options that can be done, and we're looking into them. So definitely the node holder should know the status of their node, and we're gonna offer ways for that. So yeah, that's basically where we're heading to. Okay, will node holders get feedback about the state of the network to be able to set competitive pricing? Will we know if we're excluded from the bidding mechanism because our price is too low or too high? Okay.
Yeah. This is something I may answer. Generally, this is like something that is quite necessary, we believe, and this is something we are already tackling. And the answer is yes. So the whole, I mean, in order to be able to play with the parameters and set them the most efficient way, you need to have some kind of feedback and see what is the let's say normal price in the system or average price, stuff like that. So these are the things that basically we are aware of, and we're working on this quite actively.
Yeah, I mean, also the thing is, if you're excluded from bidding mechanism, it's actually it's obvious already from Houston.
Yeah,
so that's one way to do it, but there's obviously there's maybe even sort of more graphical ways to show it. So right now you will see the amount of bids you've been sending and how many jobs you actually got from them. So you can get this all information in Houston. Obviously, as we said, UX can and will be improved. So
I mean, this is also something we didn't talk about it, but this is also something that could possibly be developed by third-party developers, like some open source contributors that would like to contribute. There are a lot of things, because a lot of this data is on smart contracts and basically available for anybody just to be presented, in a way. But it doesn't mean that we are not working on it. We are actually working on it, and I think soon we will be able to have some kind of additional info in this sense.
And I would like to use actually this opportunity to say and call out anyone who is probably not right. Call. So I can call everyone who's interested in working on such solutions or sort of anything related to OriginTrail. Give us a ring and let us know, and we'll be very happy to have you as part of the community, so that we can actually facilitate or help someone develop something in the ecosystem. Okay, so some more questions here. Okay, how is working in a blockchain startup like OriginTrail? How would you compare it to your previous jobs? This is better for you, right?
Yes. Okay, well, it's a great job. I mean, it's dynamic, it's challenging, and it is. I already said that sometimes in some writing, I think before, but this is a job that basically gives you opportunity to work on something that really matters. I mean, I have a career of 20 plus years of working on, especially in the web industry, and I was working for huge clients. I mean, like some of the top brands in the world. But if you're making some small application or a large application or any kind of web shop or whatever, you're just making some web shop. And here we are actually changing the world in a way. And this is honestly for the first time. I mean, first time in my life that I'm commercially working at least on something. I mean, as a job, not as a volunteering in something, but as a job to work on something that is actually changing the world. Because I strongly believe that blockchain technology is changing the world, and I also strongly believe that our supply chain solutions will change the world. All this set of problems that we are talking about in supply chain industry, when I get into this and got interested a little bit about the topic I was reading and realized these are the problems for, 50 years back, and people are trying to solve these problems. And now we finally have the solutions. I mean, we have the technology, we developed something on the cutting edge of science. We have this zero knowledge that we are kind of proud of. And generally, the solution that we created is really unique, and I believe that it's really on the cutting edge of technology. And on the other side, we are changing the world. So this is, I think, this is very exciting, and I love this job, honestly. And my boss is here, so I must say that.
Yeah, should I actually go out?
There is another guy with a gun here, and pointing at me, so I must say this.
So, okay, fun fact, when you start the boss joke, Vlad actually used to be my ex-boss.
Yeah.
But we'll stop it there. Maybe next time. Okay, so next one. Two more questions. Perfect. Okay, so do you guys have passion for what you're creating? The answer is probably going to be yes, but I would love to hear you guys try to convince us on why this is. Okay, personally, I find passion is immensely important for being successful in the things you do great. This is a perfectly valid question. I think you already started upon it. Actually, the way you answered the previous question shows a little bit of what kind of have the answer of this one. But anyways, we actually started tackling these problems quite a while ago. The first thing we actually touched upon, in especially food supply chains, was even 2011. Though the first commercial stuff that we did was 2013. And when I say we, I mean Tomasz, Žiga, my co-founders, and I. We started doing projects basically from the get-go in the food supply chain industry. And it was very, very interesting to be able to solve a problem in such a way you can actually find and know exactly what it is that you want to consume. We were very driven by the actual, our characteristics that we are foodies in the first place. So we really like to not only eat quality, nice food, but as well as high quality food. And it's always been a question of like, what does that mean? How do you know that it is so? And it was a very natural thing to move towards it. So 2013, we actually did the first project in organic beef, basically vertical. We've had a basic version of the system, which included QR codes that were put up on packaging of products. And by scanning this code, you would be able to see the exact farm that this piece of meat comes from, pictures from this farm, all the certificates that this farm has, and a bunch of information on it. And we were actually nominated for the award, startup award that year. But as soon as we realized that this was a very very big problem and that we can solve it in many different areas, when we moved to the dairy industry, we scaled it up. We got rid of the actual need of using a QR code and started using basic codes that were already on the packaging. So it was very, very, I would say even revolutionary that we were able to do supply chain tracking to the actual batch level without actually adding anything to the product. And that started even 2014. So we've been expanding in different industries, and this is basically what we've been doing for the last couple of years, 5 years to be exact in terms of commercial engagement. And this is the only thing we're doing. So there's no other sort of engagement. We don't have a side job and for this whole period. So it's I wouldn't be personally doing this if I would be bored by it. So, and when you look at the tech, especially behind it, and that this is one of the set of problems that this tech can actually finally help solve. The missing puzzle being decentralization and a tailored system that will handle supply chain problems in the right way, that will put up the right incentives, and that will be neutral as supply chains tend to be very wide and across the globe. A neutral system needs to be there, just like the internet is neutral in that sense, or semi-neutral at this point. And the technology is neutral, at least. That's what we're talking about here. This is there wouldn't be. I don't see a cooler thing that I would be doing, and that's so why people kind of tell me like, do I have a problem with working so much? I actually don't feel. I know it's cliche, but I don't feel like I'm working all the time. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool to be in where we are at the moment, especially because of the pressure and everything we need to do. We have 2 minutes left. We have one more question, and it's kind of cool. I'm currently a communication student and have been enamored by crypto for the last year and a half. Is there anything you recommend for students that want to get involved in the crypto space? I believe the professor can answer this the best way.
No. I'm kidding. Yeah, like any student, I mean, you have to research, and if you really are into this, I mean, there's so much material. And I'm not sure how people realize, when they are getting into this blockchain topic, how much it's actually connected to traditional philosophy, how much is connected to the society and what we are doing right now and what we are doing for past 20 centuries or so. So generally, I would recommend, reading as much and trying to, figure out how it influences the society in philosophical, economic, and all other aspects. Also, come to the conferences, try to, meet people from the industry, try to get in touch with as much as possible of some opinion leaders, any kind of influence that you feel like it is good for you. And generally, this is the way. I mean, it's probably not a unique answer for blockchain. It's probably from crypto space, but for anything that you may be interested in. But generally, this is how you do it. In any case, if you want some resources from us, we will be more than glad to give you. I mean, in that sense, if you need some links or something that is particularly you're interested about regarding our protocol and what we are doing, we will be glad to help you.
Yeah, let me finish off with that with one sentence. There's a lot of noise in the industry, but there's a lot of great things happening. It's kind of under the hood. So I would go for that. And if this is obviously a communication student, but like a tech student, I would definitely recommend just go and build and start building, start learning. It's not super hard, and it's really about like getting the right engineering mindset. And I think we need more people in this industry. So I recommend everyone who's a techie to look at it if they're not. Okay, guys, we're out of time. I hope that was basically covered everything that you guys wanted. Feel free to look up our blog post that we published in the last couple of days. They have more details on the solutions we talked about. And see you soon.
See you soon. It was my first AMA, so I was a little bit under pressure, but it was good.
You did a good job. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
See you.
See you. Bye.
Ciao.